Col de Galibier, 2,642 metres above sea level. Besides a handful of other passes, this is the highest point of the Tour de France. It was discovered for cycling by Henri de Grange, the founder of the Tour de France. He introduced it into his race in 1911, 1 year after it had first tackled the Col du Tourmalet in the Pyrenees. De Grange was a man whose idea of a perfect tour was one where just one rider made it to the finish line. So it's no surprise that this mustachioed tour maestro loved the Col de Galibier as soon as he laid eyes upon it. Vertically speaking, it was a full half a kilometre taller than its Pyrenean predecessor. And the fact that in 1911 only 3 riders made it up without walking only cemented its place in his heart. The first rider over the top that year was a Frenchman called Émile Georget, who took 2 hours 38 minutes to drag himself and his clunky iron steed almost 2,000 vertical metres from Saint-Michel-de-Maurienne. Eugène Christophe, who would famously go on to repair his forks in the blacksmiths at the foot of the Tourmalet but get penalised for having a 7-year-old boy man the bellows, hated his time labouring up the Galibier slopes. "This isn't sport anymore. This isn't racing," he said. "This is just hard labour." The stats of the Col de Galibier speak for themselves. 34.5 kilometres from the more famous north side, with an average gradient of 6.6%, skewed by several kilometres of downhill. The final 8 kilometres seldom drop below 9%. From both directions you have to climb another col to get there, the Telegraph from the north and the Lauterey from the south. As you get closer to the summit, the temperature drops, the air gets thinner and the road gets steeper. When you get there, most amateurs will have been climbing for 2 hours. It's a hard climb, even for the world's greatest ever cyclists. It was here where Fausto Coppi launched one of his trademark tour-winning moves in 1952, just 24 hours after winning the first ever summit finish at Alpe d'Huez. Here was where Marco Pantani attacked Jan Ullrich in the rain in 1998, going on to win the Tour with a solo ride to Les Deux Alpes. And here was where Thomas Voeckler gave himself a rollicking while he clung onto the yellow jersey in the 2011 race. It would have featured again in 2015 were it not for a landslide further down the valley that cut it off from the summit finish at Alpe d'Huez. Riders don't ever say that they like the Galibier. It's long. The current record from the north side stands at 1 hour and 22 minutes, and that was set by Andy Schleck and Alberto Contador in 2011. Though in that instance, they pass through the tunnel that cuts through the mountain 100 metres below the modern-day col. And yet the constant gradient, the long views up its slopes, means pure climbers can have a hard time shedding the all-rounders. Only once has it ever hosted a summit finish, in 2011, so riders know that every time they climb it, there's inevitably more suffering to come. Exit the human world. Nobody lives here, there are just 2 small chalets either side of that tunnel. In late May the heavy wooden doors are opened to the cold and the dark. In October they're shut again. It was only in 1976 that the road to the very top was constructed, adding asphalt to a goat track that went up over 2.5 kilometres of altitude. The Galibier has a natural beauty, regardless, some might say despite, the Tour de France. Unlike places like Alpe d'Huez, the Tour doesn't make this climb great. This climb makes the Tour great. Every year the Tour pays homage to its founder with the souvenir Henri de Grange, a prize awarded to the first rider over the highest point of that year's race. More often than not, it comes at the summit of the Galibier. And, 104 years after he first saw his race pass over the top, de Grange is still here with his monument, looking over his climb. We think he'd still like it.